En hurtig forintro her til en podcast, som jeg har lavet. Normalt så plejer jeg at udgive min podcast inde på kronede.dk, men jeg tænkte, at det kunne være sjovt at prøve at lægge noget podcast ud på YouTube her. Det er ikke så tit, at jeg får lagt noget ud på YouTube generelt. Så det får du lov til at se nu, hvis du har lyst, og hvis du er interesseret dig for crowdlending. Grunden til, at jeg lige laver den her hurtige lille sådan forintro, det er jo fordi, at når man laver en YouTube-video, så skal der jo gerne være et eller andet video på også, og ikke kun lyd, som der er på en podcast. Og fordi det måske var en anelse kedeligt at bare sidde og glo på os tale sammen i en times tid, jamen så har jeg brugt en del tid på at smide en hel masse forskellige små videoklip ind af Tjekkiet. Så kan du kigge på dem, mens du lytter til podcasten. De fleste af videoerne er fra Prag, som er måske den eneste hovedstad, jeg nogensinde kunne forestille mig at flytte til en dag. Og ellers så er der en lille smule fra resten af Tjekkiet, så god fornøjelse. Velkommen til Kronede Dage, sæson 2, afsnit et eller andet, 15-16 stykker eller deromkring. Kronede Dage er en podcast om penge, som du kan lytte til hver mandag formiddag kl. 10, hvor der bliver udgivet et nyt afsnit. Kronede Dage handler som sagt om penge, det vil sige budgetlægning, investering, opsparing i hverdagen og alt, hvad der er relevant for, at vi kan opnå så høj økonomisk frihed som muligt på så kort tid som muligt. De fleste afsnit af Kronede Dage er mere sådan en slags, skal vi kalde det, intro måske til et eller andet emne, eller en anmeldelse eller noget af den stil. I dag der har vi en noget længere podcast, som primært er interessant for jer, som har en interesse i crowdlending, hvad enten det så er sådan den erfarne investor, som er interesseret i at nørde lidt med et bestemt emne, eller som er interesseret i måske at lede efter nogle interessante platformer og investere i. I denne her uge, der var jeg nemlig, eller i sidste uge er det vel teknisk set nu, var jeg en tur i Prag, sidder stadigvæk dernede, og havde en snak med en tjekkisk platform, Bondster hedder de, og der kom der det her interview ud af. I næste uge, så har jeg et interview med en tjekkisk iværksætter, som også bliver interessant at høre om, håber jeg. Og så tænker jeg lidt måske, at den efterfølgende podcast, det vil sige om 3 uger, måske kunne handle lidt om, hvad der sker, når man bliver påkørt i sin bil, og får sin bil bukseret væk i udlandet. Men det kan være, at vi lige skal se, hvordan den situation den udvikler sig, før jeg laver en podcast omkring det. Og så skal jeg lige gøre opmærksom på, at de første 11 minutter, mere eller mindre næsten præcis 11 minutter i den her podcast, der er lydkvaliteten ikke den allerbedste. Der er bare lige en teknisk fejl. Man kan stadig tydeligt høre, hvad der foregår, men det bliver betydeligt bedre efter 11 minutter. Så god fornøjelse. Så velkommen til Kronede Dage. Jeg er taget en tur ned til Prag for at lave et interview med Bondster, som jeg selv har investeret en lille smule penge i. Og når man investerer sine penge, så synes man jo, det er interessant at se, hvad der foregår dernede, at man ikke bare kaster penge efter noget, man ikke ved, hvad er. Og derfor så har jeg allerede fået lov til at komme her og lave et lille interview. So, thank you for inviting me and for letting me come here and have a talk with you.
Yeah, well, thank you that you came all the way up here.
It was a pleasure. Will you introduce yourself a little?
Of course. I'm Jana Mücková. I come from Czech Republic. I spent some time abroad working and studying, and 2 years ago I came to Bondster basically as a relationship manager to start the expansion of Bondster abroad. And basically 1 year later I became the CEO, and now I basically manage the whole platform and the team under the platform.
Yeah, my name is Michäel März. I work here as back office or head of back office. We care about our clients and our partners as providers. And I work in the B2B sector for the last 5 years.
So you're quite experienced now.
Yeah, I would say.
And will you tell me a little bit about Bondster and how does it work? How does the business work and what are you doing?
Absolutely. So Bondster is online B2B platform, online investment platform, which is the biggest advantage nowadays. Everyone can actually access it easily through the internet. We are online, we are simple because through Bondster you can simply invest starting from €5. So even if you are a small investor, you can start investing with us. It's pretty simple, so the whole application or the whole, let's say, environment of the platform is very simple. You can use, for example, automatic tools like AutoInvest. through which you can filter through your preferences into what kind of loans you would like to invest. I should also mention that this our investment platform is basically through that you invest into the loans that are already issued or granted to the debtors by our partners, loan originators, or let's say we call them providers because they are providing the loans. We work with different providers from abroad. We work with the providers in Czech Republic and with different kind of providers. That means that they provide different kind of loans, different kind of maturities. That means for different kind of repayment period. And they have also different aspects, but probably we would go into that later.
How old is the platform?
The platform started in 2017, so we basically celebrated the third year anniversary this year in May.
So you're kind of new, but if you compare it to the P2P space in general, it's all quite new. And you said you used loan originators.
Yes, we work with the loan originators. We don't provide the loans ourselves because we believe that the providers, they know their job much better, and also because we work with the providers from different areas in the world, from different countries. So of course we cannot say we are professional enough and we are good enough to actually know the local market and know the aspects of each debtor in each country. So we leave that to our providers. We work with different providers from different territories, and we basically what we do, we choose the providers that we would work with.
And how do you choose which providers are worth working with for you?
Well, we have the risk team. And of course, we have some business criteria because we want to of course assure that we would offer to our investors the loans that they want and they prefer and they're attractive enough for them to invest in. So according to that, we choose the providers we would want to work with, but they have to basically undergo our scoring system. We have an internal rating system and let's say the overall assessment of each provider, and that basically means that we have certain criteria through which they have to kind of go through, and at the end we have the score, we have the internal rating, and based on that we would decide if we want to continue cooperating or even start the cooperation with each provider. And that of course consists of the qualitative and quantitative criteria. So we have of course some soft criteria like what's the management like, how do they work, what's behind the provider, if they have enough experience, if they, for example, some of the managers of the platforms, they come from the banking sector, so we know that they are used to very, let's say, strict regulation, and they know how to run a bank. That would be some kind of a precondition for us to know that they would be able to also run another business. And we have also some financial criteria. That means that we would go through the financial statements, we would go through the cash flow forecast, through their business plan, and also all those processes behind the provider. So that means their scoring system or their reserve policy and other stuff like that, to actually get an idea how they operate, how profitable they are, how good they are in the market, what's their competition. So it's like the whole set of information we need to get. We call it the overall procedure is called onboarding process, and part of it is also due diligence on each provider. And for some of our providers, it's really I would say burdensome, because we always ask so many questions, and some of them they say, okay, but we didn't have to do that to onboard another platform, And for us, it's only proof that we do our job, the right way, because we know that, okay, we ask, a few more questions, we ask you to provide us with more documents, but it's actually the fact that's important for us, because we know enough and we can be sure that we can add such a provider on our platform and actually offer him to our investors.
Is it possible for investors to see how you're rating each originator?
We don't have it published yet. But it's definitely our plan for this quarter to actually prepare the overall process and be, more transparent, because this is, this year, and I think it's a part of what, happened, or the reaction to what happened, not only in the P2P sector, but also with this COVID-19 pandemic. We want to make sure that we're transparent enough, and that's why we want to publish this rating, so that also the investors would have kind of like, easier time to understand how is the quality of each provider and what's behind each provider. So this is what we want to do. Of course, we work right now with the internal rating, but we want to transfer it, let's say, into a published one.
So you said Bondster was in 2017. Is there like an interesting story about how it worked? How did it start up, and what happened there in the beginning? Who got the idea? And
I think I would leave that to my colleague because he was here at the beginning.
Yeah, I joined Bondster during the fall 2016 when the project was at its very beginning, and the company had a total of 4 people with me. One for marketing, one for sales, one for development, and me as a back office guy who was focused mainly on customer care. And in any case, our position intervened a lot. And as in any startup, we each worked on what was most acute. And then we launched the platform online in May 2017. So
was it hard to get? I guess there was a lot of legal stuff because you were the first or second P2P platform in Czech.
We were first in this way of business of P2P. We had provided loans. So we were first. So
you had to get through a lot of legal hurdles, and they didn't know how to categorize you as a business. I guess that was.
There was a lot of work behind the launching the platform. The legal way and the developing of the platform. Technical issues and things like that. And our first provider was Acema. We had only one provider when we launched the platform, and we had few loans there, maybe 20 of them when we launched it.
So a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, I would say.
And how about financing the startup? How did you do that? What was?
Yeah, the financing of the project has been provided from the beginning by the Czech investment company.
Okay.
The Czech Equity Partners Investment, Z02E16, which is a company behind us.
Was it difficult to find investors?
I joined Bondster when it was set up like that. There was a owner of the Bondster, so this is a company which invests in startups across many industries, and so we are just part of their portfolio. I would say the biggest one maybe right now.
So we talk a little bit about the investments of the loans that people can invest in. What kind of loans do you supply?
Well, right now we have about 20 partners. That means 20 loan originators, or as we say here, public providers. And these are from different countries. So we have providers from Kazakhstan, from Russia, from the Philippines, from South Africa, from Mexico. Very recently, actually a week ago, we added a new provider from Colombia. So we basically try to cover all the continents. Let's say we almost covered all the continents already. This is our partners, and of course they are a little bit different in what they do and how they operate their business. Because, for example, the biggest Czech partner, and Michäel already mentioned Acema, that's our strategic partner and actually the first partner of the platform. The reason for that is that, they already, when we approached them, they already knew about this business because they already were working with Mintos. So they knew how the business worked, and it was much easier to get them on board. So I think this is the reason, and plus, they have big loans, big credits, because their loans are secured with real estate.
And it's consumer loan?
No.
Okay, it could be.
It could be also consumer loans
as
or
well, right?
the business loans. They are secured with real estates. But these loans are of a bigger volume, so of course they had quite a big supply for us. So we started with them as the biggest partner. But then when we wanted to basically expand to foreign markets, we figured that with foreign investors, the consumer loans with the shorter maturity are actually much more attractive. So we started searching for those providers, and that's why we added providers like, let's say, Kronede or, TAS or Right Choice Finance or Quiku, because, these loan originators have shorter maturity than, for example, with these credits, as I mentioned, from the Czech provider, from Acema, these maturities are much, much longer. For example, for 2-3 years, even 5
even
years,
longer,
even 8 years. And this is not so attractive for the investors. Plus, the interest rate is usually lower, of course, because the credits are secured, right? So we started to search for these partners, and that was actually our way, and we are still going this way. We want to, offer the investors also the secured loans and also the consumer loans with the higher interest rate. We recently also introduced the tool that's actually online exchange currency. It's basically very simple. You can convert euros into Czech crowns and the other way around. So even for euro, or for, I call them euro investors that invest mostly in euro, but those foreign investors have actually much easier access to the Czech loans. There also, for some of them, it's very interesting because these loans can be of 8 or 9% interest rate per year, but still they are, for example, some of them they are secured with real estate. And especially nowadays, when we saw several platforms failed and some of the loan originators had really big troubles, not also on our platform but on other platforms as well. I think that what we see now is the trend that investors are actually more careful and they choose more carefully what to invest in. And I think that the trend right now would be more towards the secured loans, or at least the loans with the parameters that don't stand only on the interest rate, and the interest rate they are double digit, but also on the security or other aspects of the loan.
Outside of secured loans, you also have some loans with the buyback guarantee.
Yes, that's correct.
Like a few of them? Or?
No, actually most of them. From the foreign partners, actually that's all of them. So all of our foreign partners, and when I say foreigner, I know that for foreign investors it sounds weird, but other than Czech,
all the euro loans.
Exactly.
Okay, they all have buyback guarantee.
They all have buyback guarantee, and some of the Czech loans also have buyback guarantee. We have, for example, one Czech partner, Czech loan originator that provides loans that are secured with real estate. They are business loans secured with real estate, and they also offer, on top of this security, they offer also the buyback guarantee. Yeah. So that's something which is, I think, really interesting. It's in the Czech crowns, but it's still 10% annual return for the investors. And
then you have some loans, I don't remember what you call them, where you can realize your investments quite quickly, like from day to day.
Yes, we have this aspect of loan as well. We call it exit of investment. Yeah. And that means that with some of the loans, you can, in a certain frequency, you can exit from the loan fully for a certain fee that is preset before you start investing in.
But then you have some that are like much quicker. I have some that are like 3.7% interest or something, but then I should be able to...
Yes, that's called Smart Reserve.
Smart Reserve, yes.
Smart Reserve. And with them, that's a special product that we basically developed with this strategic partner, the Czech partner, Acema. And with them, we developed this product to actually, allow the investors to earn something when they are, for example, waiting for the opportunity that would be of their interest. So that means that you can invest in such a product, and anytime you can basically exit from it.
Yes. So there are many options, both like consumer loans and property loans, and some with buyback guarantee, and at least some Czech ones without buyback guarantee, and the different kinds of security, and also different levels of loan to value ratio.
Exactly.
Yeah, and maturity as well.
Maturity and the country and the type of the debtor as well, because we have consumer loans and the business loans as well.
So even though it's like it's a big question because there are so many different kinds of loans, can you give like a ballpark number of what should people expect to make what should their expected return be if they invest in Bondster?
Currently the average return for Czech crowns investments are where they are mostly secured loans, real estate or things like that, is from 8 to 9%, something like 8.5. And for euro, in euros, it's about 13.5.
But of course, nowadays, this average is calculated from the overall portfolio that's active on our platform.
Exactly. So it depends on what you're buying.
So if we would look at it from today's perspective, you could definitely expect around 9 to 10% in Czech crowns and around 15 to 17% in euros. Because really the situation changed a lot, and during the crisis
that's very high in euro.
That's true. Yeah. That's true, because that's the market, and we always try to repeat that we operate a marketplace. And of course the marketplace work they try to balance the supply and the demand, right?
Yeah.
And during the crisis, the demand from the side of the providers was really high because they need the financing, especially after the first, let's say, wave of those restrictions and stuff like that. The people that was affected by the crisis the most, they lost their jobs, and of course they needed additional financing.
And so investors were drawing out the money.
Exactly, and the investors was quite nervous. We saw this trend during the crisis that especially the Czech ones. I have to say that they got really nervous because they saw the stock market and everything, and they were really I would say confused and shocked by the changes in the stock market. So they withdrew the money, and of course then the demand for loans got lower, and of course that the partners or loan originators had to and were forced to offer a higher interest rate in order to get the financing.
And then there were all the issues with all the payment holidays that I know you were affected by as well.
Yes. Yeah, we were trying to cover that with our risk team because we wanted to give our investors the update. So on our website, we informed them what's the situation in each countries we covered by in each country of our loan originators. Was the situation with the regulation, because some of these credit holidays were actually implemented as a law. And of course, if it's a law, you cannot really say anything because that's the law. And you as a creditor, or the investor as a creditor, and the owner of the assignment had to also comply with such a law. So that's why we implemented also a special website. We call it a microsite, through which actually investor could insert his ID. And he could see how many of those loans were actually affected by these credit holidays in what country, so that he would have an idea. The thing is that even if we extended a certain, repayment schedule of those loans, through that extension, all the investors are still receiving the interest. So of course, it's not very comfortable that, they, for example, expected that they would receive their money fully in 3 months' time. And now because of these, or due to these credit holidays, the repayment was rescheduled for a later period of time. But throughout the whole period, they still were receiving or are receiving the interest.
And what is the status now for all of these issues with the payment holidays?
Well, it depends country to country. With some countries, it was only for example, 6 months period. That's, for example, the case of the Czech Republic. Yes. In Czech Republic, this period ends at the end of October. So starting by November, that there should be the normal or standard regime of those loans. Also, the loans that were issued after March, these are in standard regime. So also the loans that were added after March, these new loans, exactly, these are standard, and the investors can expect that within these loans there were no reschedules or no changes in the repayment schedule. With some other countries, it's different. For example, in the Philippines, they had 1 month of the quarantine, through which they didn't have to pay the interest. So the debtors were repaying only the principal, but the interest was rescheduled within 1 month.
Okay.
But it's different for each country. But if investors would be interested in that and in situation within each country, they can definitely go to our website, to the section of articles of blog on our website, where they can see what's the status for each country, and we regularly update that. So if there is some changes in this regime or regulations, we also inform them about that.
And if we look at all the loans in general that you have facilitated to investors, and also what happened now, but also from before all of the Corona stuff, how much do people expect to write off of their investments? What have you seen now in your data?
It's quite hard to say, because with some of the loans we consider them defaulted, and it's really just a few of those loans that we already sold to investors. But if they are defaulted, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will be for write-off as well.
Because
there is still, not only because of the buyback, we have some of them, they are not with the buyback guarantee, but they are secured. So that means that there will be legal proceedings, and there will be court decisions, and after that they would have the opportunity, the provider would sell the subject of the security, and from that the investors would be getting the repayment.
If we look at your maybe a bit of your older loans, what does your data say about how many loans should be expected? How much money, what big of a percentage of your investment should you expect to write off before you
currently it's under 1%.
Okay.
The overall portfolio.
Okay, so that's what you've seen now, under 1% write-off. Okay, so that's pretty low.
Yeah.
And that's also that's after you consider buyback guarantees as well.
Yes. Of course, with the buyback guarantee nowadays it doesn't work as we would like to. There are some delays, of course, because of the corona. Because of the corona and because of this credit holidays. So if you would look at the statistics of our platform right now, you would see that there is a higher percentage of loans that have some pending with the buyback guarantee. Yeah. But we slowly repay that with the providers. So we hope that by the end of this year everything will be settled. And as I said, we are kind of in the middle. So this is really complicated situation, because on one side we have these investors, they are panicking and asking us what's happening with their money, of course, which is totally understandable. But on the other hand, we have these providers, and if you imagine that with some of the providers, the governments, they implemented those laws saying, okay, this is the law that there will be a credit holiday and you will not get your cash flow from the debtors for 6 months. Of course, we have to somehow, understand also their situation. So we are trying to balance that into what I said, that we try to negotiate with each of those providers, that in case they have some short-term liquidity troubles or cash flow troubles, okay, at least pay the interest so that the investors would be still earning money, and then slowly repay the rest, so that we would get back to the normal and we can start a business again. I also, regarding the buyback guarantee, that this situation that we have right now with the somewhat financial collapse because of the coronavirus is also one of the things that when people asked me back in January or so, what is the risk of buyback guarantee? I said that something happens, that people can't pay their loans because they calculate how much they expect not to be paid, and they put it into their budget, and they are able to do the buyback. But as soon as because it's leveraged loans basically. Yes. So when it goes up a little bit, the number of delayed loans or defaulted loans, then it can completely collapse a loan originator. Is that a worry? What do you think about that? Is that something that you... Well, and I think that this is the reason why there are these delays, because they cannot buy back everything at one point, right? Yeah. So they, of course, have to somehow manage their cash flow so that they would be able to operate in the future. Because if you imagine, if we would just, push one provider, okay, now you have to buy back everything at one point because you are not complying with the rules as you should, then they they would go into bankruptcy basically. And we would not get anything, neither of us, not our platform, not our clients, and they would, become insolvent and they would be in bankruptcy or insolvency. So it's not a win-win situation.
No.
So this is the reason why there are these delays. As I said, at least without these delays, the investors would be still receiving the interest, plus they would be receiving also the penalty fee, which is an extra on the interest because they are getting the repayment with some delay.
Okay.
So
one of the reasons that I was looking at new platforms and also Bondster was that I had quite a big part of my portfolio in buyback guaranteed loans in other platforms. So I put some money into Estate Guru and now a little bit in Bondster to see what's going on here as well. Because personally, I try to get money out of the buyback guaranteed loans, especially the ones that are consumer loans, and into something with backed by some kind of asset, and usually it's real estate. How much is actually invested through Bondster?
Well, currently we have, 50 million euro?
Yeah, 15 million euro.
15 million euro.
We are growing closer.
And that's including the Czech crowns? Like that's the
that's overall portfolio, converted into euros.
About regulations, are there certain reasons that it would make sense to invest in a Czech platform compared to maybe some platforms in other countries that maybe regulatory benefits?
Yeah, I would say definitely. And if you talk to different investors who are, like, I would say, more experienced in P2P investing, they would tell you that for them it's also a part of their diversification between the platforms. Because for some of them, of course, they don't invest into only one platform, but in their portfolio there are probably 2 or 3 platforms, usually some local platforms and then some foreign platforms. Some of them, they say that the benefit of Bondster is actually that they are some kind of alternative to all these Baltic platforms, that they feel that in the Czech Republic it's kind of more secured in a way that the financial and the banking sector here is very stable. We were not hit by the 2008 crisis as so many other countries. Plus, they feel that here in the Czech Republic we are more transparent because we are owned by the Czech investment company. Behind that company is Czech owners and Czech money. Within the Baltic platforms or our competitors, sometimes it's really, really hard to find the ultimate owner and to actually find what money is behind the platform. So we feel that that's definitely our advantage.
There's more transparency regarding to ownership.
Absolutely, and regarding also the environment we operate in, because the Czech laws, and also if you consider the European laws and European regulations in the Czech Republic, they are much faster implemented into the laws here, and we have to comply with all that. In terms of regulation from for example, Czech National Bank, we don't have to get a license. And we were actually trying to get the license, but Czech National Bank told us, okay, but you are not regulated because there is no regulation for a P2P platform like yourself. So we don't have a license from Czech National Bank. But as our COO, he is actually one of the founder of one smaller Czech bank. So he has a lot of experience with the regulation in terms of banking, and we basically built the whole concept of Bondster on the banking standards. So for us, we would actually welcome some regulations because we feel that it would definitely cleanse the market a little bit. And I'm not talking about the Czech market only, but on overall markets. If you look at Europe, we saw some failures at the beginning of the year for the platforms like Coetzal or Investu or others. So we would definitely welcome that because we feel that this is the way to go forward, because even investors, they want to have more transparency, and they want to have let's say some regulator that would oversee the market also from the perspective of the financial, let's say, authority.
So just to see if I'm getting it, there's more transparency here. You can easily see. It's easier for you to see who owns it, but there's very little regulation. So it's a little bit of a Wild West as well, kind of like in Estonia.
I wouldn't say that it's the same as in Baltics, because in Baltics they don't. I would say they don't really care that much about, for example, the agreements and the legal stuff, as we learned. But I would say that here we build all the stuff, as I say, basically on banking standards. So, for example, if we look at AML standards, we go as we were a bank because of our COO, who was used to those standards, and it was really hard to kind of like push him. Okay, this is not a bank. We don't need to do everything like in a bank. But he's still like, okay, but we would be ready. Let's do it. We know we are not regulated. We don't have to do that, but let's do that because this is the standard, and let's be prepared in case it would be implemented like that.
So there's a thing that surprised me a little bit, probably because I didn't read all your terms, because I'm invested in Czech crowns for many reasons.
Yeah.
Most of it emotional.
Right.
And I found out that there's a management fee. And as I understand, it's only a management fee for money that is invested in Czech crowns and
that's
not for...
correct.
So there's no fee at all if you invest in euros.
Yeah, that's true.
What is the reason for the management fee?
I know it sounds very probably confusing for most of the investors, but the reason for that is actually that in the Czech market we really have to spend a lot of money for educating the market. Because if we work with the foreign investors, it's much easier, because most of them, they already know P2P sector, they know how the investing in P2P works, and we don't need to spend that much time to explaining them how it works, and we don't need to do so much marketing. In the Czech market, it's different, because as you said, we are only the second platform that basically operates here in the Czech Republic, and we are the only one that operates in the way that we don't issue the loans, and we only work as a marketplace. So for Czech investors, sometimes it's quite difficult to explain
it's for marketing.
Yes, it's for the marketing and let's say the education role that we feel that we have here to get the investors.
Do you think that will change in the future?
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully. We get some requests from investors that they want to decrease this fee or erase it at all. But right now, especially during this crisis, it's still some part of our income, and we can invest that money into that marketing and education, which we feel that we should do.
Do you have so you have very few non-Czech investors who invest in Czech crowns?
As we said, we started as only Czech platform with the Czech loans. So our investors base is 80% Czech investors and 20% foreign investors right now.
And they all invest in euros, more or less, all the foreigners?
The Czech investors, they invest in both currencies, and basically foreigner investors, they mostly invest only in euro investments or euro loans. But it's changing a little bit, as it's not even a month ago that we introduced this online currency conversion. And after that, we learned that also foreign investors are actually quite active when investing into Czech loans.
Yeah. If you were a Danish investor, would it make more sense for you to invest in euros or Czech crowns, or a combination?
It depends on what kind of investors you are. Yeah. If you are an investor that is not that aggressive and who wants to have some kind of security behind the investments, I would definitely recommend to change euros into Czech crowns and have some funds in that as well, because that would allow you to invest into really, I would say, very good loans from
some of these property-backed loans.
Yeah, exactly.
Long-term,
Yeah, they are secured with real estate. Our platform works in a way that you can also check the security papers, so you can see actually
the proofs about the security. You can check the picture of the real estate that is the security for that loan. You can check the LTV and you can find much more information about that. So I think that it's really good alternative for you to kind of complement your portfolio that is, for example, more dynamic in euros, and you invest in consumer loans with, for example, 30 days of maturity. That's totally different, of course. If you have loans that are secured with real estate for example, 3 to 5 years, that would earn you around 8 to 10% in Czech crowns. That's different.
Minus the management fee.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But a lot of them still have the opportunity to withdraw some of your money earlier, but you usually have to pay a small fee on top of that.
Yes, it's usually 1%, so it's not a big fee.
Yeah, and 0.5% as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It depends on the loan originator.
Yeah. So if we look at P2P investment in general, if you have, I don't know, 1 million crowns that you want to invest in general in stocks and bonds and P2P and whatever, how big of a percentage do you think makes sense generally, like a rule of thumb that should be invested in P2P lending? Not necessarily at Bondster, but just in general.
Right. Again, it depends on what kind of investor you are, but we always recommend that this is, the double-digit returns, they of course come with some risk. We have to consider that this is investors triangle that of course, and you have to always compare the risk, the liquidity, and the yield, right? So what we usually recommend is, okay, if you want to try this P2P sector, invest 30 to 40% of your loan portfolio maximum on your overall portfolio, not only loan portfolio. And then you can, of course, diversify between the loan originators, between the platforms. It's up to you.
That was my next question.
Okay.
If you invest, you earn 1 million crowns and you invest 30%, that's 300,000. How large of a percentage should be in Bondster, or at least in one platform, compared to, like, how much should you diversify on platforms? And I understand it's like very individual, but it's like a rule of thumb, a general idea.
Yeah, well, what we see with some of our investors, they say that they are not able to operate with more than 2 or 3 platforms because it's simply, the administration of all those accounts and setting up the auto invests and checking the portfolio and learning all those news and developments from each platform is too much. So I would say that this is somehow reasonable opinion from our investors that to have 2 or 3 platforms, that's enough, and that's pretty good diversification, especially when you choose the platforms. They are not the same in the sense that they, for example, offer something different. You have crowdfunding platforms, you have P2P platforms, you have platforms that are focused only on, for example, invoicing. You have platforms that are focused on only, or they operate only with the business loans, or they operate only with the secured loans. So it's really up to you how you want to basically build your loan portfolio, and also what's your expected return.
Sure. What would a well-diversified Bondster portfolio look like?
Well, we have almost 20 providers, so that's first opportunity for diversification between the providers. Across all providers, you can invest from €5, so I would definitely recommend to also diversify in the sense that you would invest smaller amount into different loans, because of course behind each loan you have a different subject, and of course these subjects, I mean, either it is companies or people, they have different, of course, level or probability of default. So I would definitely choose between that as well. Between the security, so I would look into the maturity of the loans and the security, and of course the LTV in case they are secured. And again, it all depends if you want to have double-digit return or if you want to be more sure that you get the money fully back and on time. And of course, in that case, I would invest into for example, our Czech strategic partner that offer especially secured loans with real estate here in the Czech Republic, where you can check, as I said, the security. You can check all the data about the debtor, the repayment schedule, what's his quality and stuff like that.
There was a question in my mind. I forgot it.
No worries.
Yeah. So is it possible to do that? Because it's quite. If you invest €5 in each loan, it's quite a big job for you to do. But
That's
you have
right.
an auto investor.
That's correct.
And can you do this fully? The full diversification with the auto investor?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you
you can also, we have this option that you click and you say, okay, full diversification. And when you do that, like there will be a full diversification between all the providers. So that would mean that in case we would have 10 providers and you would click on full diversification, each provider or each of your portfolio that you want to invest would be divided into that. That would mean that each provider would get 10% of that loan portfolio.
So if a provider is not providing new loans for a while, then there will be cash until the provider is, that there are new loans from them.
No, that's true, and that's something we are working on right now. In case we would add a new provider, that would mean you would need to set up your auto invest again, because there would be new providers. So basically the conditions would be changed.
Of course, they have to accept it themselves.
Yeah,
what
exactly.
I mean is if you have like, what did you say, 40 providers. So you want 1/40 of your money in each provider. And if one of them are not providing any loans for a while, that means you will have cash accumulating until there are new loans.
And you need to modify your setup.
Yeah, it will not be invested in another provider,
Yes.
so you will always have
that's
these.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We've been talking a little bit about the recent events in general in the P2P space, both in regards to the COVID thing and in regards to at least 3 platforms that turned out to be probably not so reliable.
Right.
What are your general thoughts on what's going on? And not necessarily also in regards to Bondster, but just the whole P2P space. I can tell you what I've seen first.
Okay.
I've seen that a lot of people got very nervous and tried to pull out all their money. And some people decided never to invest in P2P again, they say. Yes, they say, right? And of course, they're also the most verbal people, so they probably don't represent, they're not as representative as what you see online when you see what they're writing, right? But there are definitely people who got worried. And then there are people who pulled out money. I did that to some degree because the stock market was low, not because of fear, but because there was an option to buy stocks at a 30% discount.
Sure.
And I've also seen that the interest in P2P was declining significantly. If you look at how much people write me and ask, and how much people write on Facebook, on these Facebook groups, and also how many new members we got on the Facebook groups, it was in steep decline for a couple of months, and now it's starting to go up again. That's what I've seen.
Yes, that's a trend we can definitely confirm. We saw the biggest decline in April. In March, it was still, I would say, okay, because of course there was the reaction to the situation was a little bit delayed, but we saw a big decline in April and also again in May. But luckily, what we saw was in June it was going up again, little by little. What we see right now is that we can grow again by 20-30%, which is really good, I think. And it also confirms what you said, like for a short period of time, they had these opportunities outside the B2B sector. That's why they withdrew the money, they invest them into stocks or in other assets. And now they are slowly returning back because they are, of course, attracted by those higher interest rate. And I think that with B2B sector, there are certain investors, they simply got used to higher yields. And for them to get only, let's say, 5% on bonds or 6% on bonds, it's simply not enough in a long run. And that's why they come back. So, of course, I understand that they were worried, they were panicking, they didn't know. And of course, no one knew what's going to happen, right? So I totally understand that some of them were freaking out. But what we see now, and we can confirm the trend you were talking about, that it started to get back on track and back to normal, which is great, and it confirms also our operation right now, because we added new provider this month, and we are we are planning to do so in the future as well, because we see that the demand is again here, and we have to offer them something, right? So we work as normally right now, and we of course had to do some changes in terms of the risk assessment, because of course this situation with the COVID also showed us that we have to be more focused also on the cash flow of the provider and check their accounts if they have some reserves and stuff like that, so that they would be, for example, able to go through the possible next wave. Who knows what's going to come next? So this is definitely, we see it as benefit, and as I said, also the situation you mentioned about other platforms and loan originators, we see it as an opportunity for the platforms that remain in the industry to actually go forward and get some additional investors, and the whole market will be cleansed. And this is the way for each market. Sometimes something bad happens, and that means that it will improve the situation for the others, and we hope that everyone learned from the situation, and it will make us stronger for the way we go forward.
The question is whether all of these issues with platforms not turning out to actually be real businesses is over. There was just a case I heard yesterday, 2 days ago, about another platform that might be an issue as well.
Really?
Yeah, so I will not say the name because I don't know much about it. I just saw a very quick headline. What would you say if someone asked if Bondster is the new Codsal? How would you reply to that?
I think with Codsal it was a totally different situation. There were some hints that you could learn even before the crisis, that the platform is not very transparent. They offered super high interest rates. Yes. They had so many projects that it was questionable if they have enough professionals to actually assess those projects. So I think this is nothing like what we do, and
most people don't look into it as much as you did, right? They just see there's a platform and they offered high return.
That's true, but
and then they trust that. Yeah. I think you were mentioning, you were approaching the subject as well, that we also learned a lot about maybe being a little more careful.
Exactly.
And not just
that's what I was just about to say.
Returns.
It goes back to what I said, that everyone will learn from this, and not even the platforms, not even the loan originators, but also the investors. They would, choose the partners more carefully, and this is the trend we see also with our loan originators that we have in the pipeline, and they want to start cooperation with us. And from what we see now from those meetings and negotiations, they also choose which platform they would cooperate with. They are not like before. I think from what I experienced before, it was like they didn't care. They just want someone who would give them the money. Yeah. And they didn't understand, or probably they didn't realize that, they would connect their name with a certain platform. And if that platform would fail, they would, of course, affect their reputation. And what happened, for example, I would not name the provider, but we are cooperating with, or starting potential cooperation with one Spanish provider. And what he said is, we actually conducted a due diligence on providers, on platforms. And we came up with these 3 platforms. And with these three platforms, we would, start the talks, because these are the most trustworthy and the most transparent. Yeah. So, the whole industry changes in the sense.
I would like to know which 3 platforms that would be.
We were in that 3 numbers, which was, for me, for example, it was a huge step forward, because when I started here, we were listed in, the first 15 platforms somewhere, we were ranked to the 10th or 14th good platform in Europe. And suddenly, we are the best, in the best 3. That's a huge step. And I think that's something that we should be, responsible for, and we should, it's a huge responsibility for me, actually, to remain in that 3 numbers and improve the platform in the way that, as I said, we learned from what happened, of course, And even now, when we add new provider to the platform, we feel very responsible, and we really want to make sure that everything is good, because in case another wave of this COVID-19 pandemic would come, we have to be sure that they would overcome and they would go through it, because it's a huge reputational risk also for our platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So a question that is a huge interest to me. Have you been thinking about doing any equity crowdfunding?
Yes, well, we were thinking about it, but the big question for us was the regulation, because the crowdfunding basically means that you get the money from the public, and for that, at least in the Czech Republic, you should get a license. And to get a license is a huge process. You have to have really a lot of processes covered, in the sense that you would not be only the operator of the marketplace. But you would be basically
an exchange.
Exactly. So it's a little bit different, and we decided that we would now focus solely on what we do. Okay. We of course have discussed and we have analyzed different other options, how to, I would say, enrich the platform, in the sense that we would offer the investors also other possibilities of investment. But for now, we would be focusing on what we do right now, to really get all the processes into order and potentially get ready for the next wave, so that we would be covered in terms of the system, in terms of the development of the platform, all the functionalities we want to offer, because we are currently developing the secondary market. And some other tools I would not disclose right now, but we work on some other things, and we want to fully concentrate on that.
That was actually my next question. If you have something else in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's definitely the secondary market. We feel that's something that actually we miss to be a complete fully recognized platform. So this is something we are working on right now. It's a huge work in terms of the legal stuff, because all the agreements and everything have to be covered. And we have quite strict lawyers here, so it's a huge job to do and prepare everything, because right now we have two currencies, right? So, and the online conversion, so it makes everything more complicated. But we hope that definitely by the end of this year we would be able to introduce this.
You have something else in the pipeline that you are willing to disclose?
Not for now. I would just leave it to that. I would hope that all the investors that are interested into the developments of the platform would just register with us and receive our regular mailings and newsletters to learn more. Yeah.
So the last question is, I think, it's your opportunity also to make a little sales pitch. Why do you think people should invest in Bondster?
Because we have a really good risk team. That's for starters. That's the most important thing, I think, right now, especially right now. We have very wide possibilities of diversification in terms of countries, maturity, security. We already, type of the products, we already said that. And it's super simple for someone who would want only to start with investing, who don't have enough money, I would say, to enter the funds, for example, or enough money to pay the advisor, the financial advisor. This is simple. You can manage it yourself. It's online. We have many articles and many, let's say, educational texts that would kind of, get you through the whole process, how to start, how to learn more about the B2B sector. We have excellent customer care. They're ready online on chat, or they, reply to your emails within 48 hours, which is great. Yeah. So I hope you can confirm that as well.
I can.
We also talk to our investors over the phone, so they can call us anytime. So I think that this is just the very, very nice way how to start investing in the first place. And even if you are a more experienced investor, we serve also some Swiss companies, investment companies that work with us, and they have a really big portfolio with us in euros. So I think that we can actually somehow satisfy the beginners and also more experienced investors, and even, as I say, investment companies. So I think that that makes it a complete opportunity for you guys to earn double-digit returns.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to come and have a little talk.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for a nice interview.
Thank you for coming.
Det var mit interview med Bondster, og hvis du har nogle andre, du godt kunne tænke dig at interviewe, eller du måske selv er interessant at have en snak med omkring et eller andet med penge og privatøkonomi og investeringer, eller noget andet i det område, jamen, så er du altid velkommen til at sende mig en mail selvfølgelig. Og hvis du synes, at du kan bruge de her podcast til noget, så husk at gå ind på pengepuger.dk/support. Pas godt på jer selv derude.